What happens when the son of a celebrity finds himself in legal trouble, only to watch part of it disappear, while another part sticks? That's exactly what happened to Bryce Drummond, son of Food Network star Ree Drummond, also known as the Pioneer Woman. In a case that's been quietly unfolding in Oklahoma, Bryce's misdemeanor charge for being in control of a vehicle while intoxicated was dropped. But despite that legal win, he's now facing a separate setback: a revoked driver's license upheld by a state court. So what exactly happened? Why did the criminal charge vanish, but the license revocation remained? And what does this mean for Bryce moving forward? Stick with us as we break down everything you need to know about this high-profile and somewhat confusing legal situation. Bryce Drummond is more than just a familiar last name. The 22-year-old is the son of Ree Drummond, a best-selling author, blogger, and host of The Pioneer Woman on the Food Network. Bryce made a name for himself as a student athlete, playing football for Oklahoma State University. Known for his athletic ability and presence on the field, he was listed as a graduation candidate in spring 2025. His family's roots run deep in Oklahoma, especially in Osage County, where they own large portions of land and are recognized as one of the most prominent ranching families in the region. The Drummond name carries weight, but as Bryce recently discovered, that doesn't always shield someone from legal consequences. Let's rewind to May 11th, 2024. According to reports, a Stillwater police officer was responding to a disturbance near Bryce Drummond's home in the early hours of the morning. While investigating, the officer noticed the lights of a parked pickup truck suddenly turn on. The officer approached and found Bryce in the driver's seat. A field sobriety test was administered on the spot, with the officer noting signs of intoxication. Bryce was arrested on suspicion of actual physical control of a vehicle while under the influence, a charge that can be filed even if the vehicle isn't moving. The idea is that someone behind the wheel with the ability to operate a vehicle while impaired still poses a public risk. Fast forward to April 2025, the misdemeanor charge against Bryce Drummond was officially dismissed by Payne County Special District Judge Susan Worthington. The judge ruled that the arresting officer did not have probable cause to make the arrest. Essentially, the court found that the officer's approach to the vehicle and subsequent actions didn't meet the legal standard required for detaining someone under suspicion of intoxication. Prosecutors had the option to appeal that ruling, but for reasons unknown, they chose not to pursue it. With the appeal deadline passed, the dismissal stood. On the criminal side, Bryce walked away clean. But the story didn't end there. Even though the misdemeanor was tossed, Bryce's arrest triggered a separate administrative process through Service Oklahoma, the state's motor vehicle agency. They launched a civil action to revoke his driver's license for 180 days. This process is different from a criminal trial and doesn't require a conviction. It's based on whether there was enough evidence at the time of the arrest to justify the suspension of driving privileges. This is a common route taken by DMVs across the U.S. in cases involving suspected DUI or physical control, regardless of whether a person is formally charged or convicted. Under the revocation terms, Bryce wasn't completely banned from driving. He was permitted to operate his personal vehicle, but only with an interlock device installed. That device requires a clean breath sample before the engine can start, essentially preventing anyone under the influence from driving. He was also allowed to drive a work vehicle without the device if needed. Bryce and his attorney, Kai Corley, appealed the license revocation, challenging the officer's authority to approach the truck, whether there was reasonable suspicion, and if there was proof that Bryce was in actual control of the vehicle in a public area. While his appeal was pending, Bryce was reportedly pulled over in Osage County and given a ticket for driving with a revoked license. That could have complicated things, but the court dismissed the ticket because the appeal was still active at the time. This shows how complex the intersection of administrative and criminal law can be. Someone can have charges dismissed in one arena, but still face consequences in another. And that's exactly what Bryce was navigating, trying to stay on the right side of a system that was sending mixed signals. On August 1st, 2025, the Oklahoma Court of Civil Appeals upheld the driver's license revocation. The appellate judges found that the district court had not made an error in the revocation process. That means the 180-day license revocation remains in place, and Bryce must continue to comply with its terms. His attorney, however, has stated that he plans to take the case to the Oklahoma Supreme Court. Whether the higher court will agree to hear the case is uncertain, but the attempt signals that Bryce and his legal team aren't done fighting. Of course, what makes this story resonate beyond Oklahoma is the public profile of the Drummond family. Drummond has been a household name for over a decade, thanks to her cooking show and lifestyle brand. Her family lives on a ranch near Pawhuska, and their operations have grown into a successful business empire. The family's connections include Oklahoma Attorney General Gentner Drummond, adding another layer of public attention. But despite their high-profile status, the legal process played out in much the same way it would for any Oklahoma resident, at least in court. So what's next for Bryce Drummond? With the misdemeanor behind him, but the license revocation still active, he'll likely continue life under the restrictions imposed by Service Oklahoma. Whether or not the Oklahoma Supreme Court takes up his appeal could have long-term implications, not just for Bryce, but for how administrative actions are handled in similar cases statewide. For now, it's a reminder that legal outcomes aren't always straightforward. You can beat a criminal charge and still face real-world consequences. As for the Drummond family, they've yet to make a public statement, and maybe that's for the best while the legal dust settles. Interestingly, despite Bryce Drummond's name being attached to a legal case, there hasn't been a strong public backlash or even widespread media coverage. That may partly be because the criminal charge was dismissed and the license revocation is a civil matter, not a felony or high-profile trial. It's also worth noting that the Drummond family has historically kept their personal matters relatively private, even with the media spotlight on them. Drummond's brand focuses on food, family, and rural life, not celebrity drama, so the lack of public statements seems in line with that image. On social media, fans have largely remained supportive, focusing on her TV show, recipes, and day-to-day updates rather than the legal troubles of her adult son. But even so, the incident is a reminder that public figures and their families aren't immune to the law. This case has become a textbook example of the difference between criminal and administrative consequences. Most people assume that if a charge is dismissed, the matter is over, but in reality, administrative agencies like Service Oklahoma operate under different legal standards. They can enforce consequences like license suspension based on probable cause or arrest records, even if the courts don't convict someone. For Bryce, that meant facing fallout even after winning his criminal case. It's a system that many Americans don't realize exists until they're caught in it. The key takeaway here is that the legal system in the U.S. has multiple layers. A courtroom win doesn't always mean complete vindication, especially when it comes to driving rights, professional licenses, or school disciplinary actions. These systems often operate independently, and as Bryce's situation shows, they can still have a lasting impact. As we wrap up this story, it's worth asking, what comes next for Bryce Drummond? Will the Oklahoma Supreme Court take the case and possibly reverse the decision? Or will the revocation stand, completing the 180-day penalty and moving on quietly? Either way, this case sheds light on how the law functions beyond headlines and celebrity associations. It's about process, precedent, and understanding that not all legal consequences are criminal. For young adults, especially student-athletes or public figures, it's a cautionary tale about the importance of decision-making and how quickly one moment can trigger months of legal follow-up. For now, Bryce appears to be staying out of further trouble and focusing on his next chapter. And as with many legal battles, sometimes the best outcome is simply moving forward, learning from the experience, and not looking back.